In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. You've heard the oath, you know the symbol. It is widely considered the most powerful weapon in the DC universe. A tool that can do literally anything, as long as you have the willpower to make it happen. Welcome back to Nerd Stuff and Things. And today, on our Fictional Weapons Explained series, we are heading to the center of the DC universe, to a planet called Oa. We're breaking down the Owen Power Ring. We're going to dive into the weird magical history of the Golden Age, break down exactly why Hal, Guy, John, and Kyle use their rings so differently. This video was requested by somebody in the comments. I'm going to throw it up right here. Thank you very much for the interaction. Thank you for the suggestions. We will continue to do them as long as there are suggestions. So charge your batteries and let's get started. To understand the rings, you have to understand the history of the people who built them. I'm talking about the first race of intelligent mortals, whom would later become immortal, but they were the first race in the DC universe, the Malthusians. They were billions of years ahead of the curve when some of the oldest known races in the DCU were just starting. But a single event caused them to split their species into subspecies. What was the event, you may ask? A Malthusian scientist named Corona performed a forbidden experiment to view the dawn of time, accidentally introducing entropy and evil into the universe. The race split into factions based on how they believed they should handle this guilt. One of the groups, the group we will be focusing on, are the Guardians. They wanted to protect the universe by harnessing their scientific knowledge to create emotionless robots named the Manhunters. They would police the 3,600 sectors that made up the universe. However, the Guardians, thinking that the emotionless robots would be able to police fairly, would turn out to be a grave mistake. The Manhunters' pure logic eventually led them to the conclusion that no man equals no evil. This programming glitch caused them to massacre all life in Sector 666. After stopping the Manhunters, the Guardians realized that a police force made of cold, unfeeling machines was a mistake. They decided that their new enforcers needed to possess the ability to discern right from wrong, a trait that requires a soul and emotions. It was then that the Guardians tapped into the green light of willpower, the center of the emotional electromagnetic spectrum. They built rings that ran off this almost magical energy and founded the Green Lantern Corps, replacing the Manhunters with living beings who had the will to overcome fear. All right, now that we got the history out of the way, let's talk turkey. So, what can a standard issue GL Core ring do? Here's a list of some of the better known abilities. We have hard light constructs. The ring can create objects of solidified light. These constructs are limited only by the user's imagination. Flight and travel. It grants the ability to fly at faster than light speeds and navigate wormholes. Protective aura. It generates a personal force field that provides life support, allowing the user to breathe in space and survive hits from heavy hitters like Superman or Mongol. Universal translator. It translates almost any language in the universe instantly. Scanning and processing. It acts as a supercomputer, analyzing forensic evidence, identifying energy signatures, and accessing the massive Owen database. Let's talk weaknesses for a second. Historically, the ring had two major limitations. First, it had to be recharged every 24 hours using a personal miniaturized battery of the giant battery on Oa. And second was the yellow impurity. For decades in the comics, Green Lantern rings could not affect anything colored yellow. Why? Because the entity of fear, Parallax, was imprisoned inside the central power battery on Oa, a glitch in the system that meant the green light couldn't overcome the yellow spectrum. The standard Green Lantern protocols. Security protocol lockout. This is the most common protocol. If a ring is removed or stolen, it locks out the unauthorized user. The ring will not generate constructs or a protective aura for anyone other than the chosen lantern. Search protocol, sector scan. Upon the death of a Green Lantern, the ring enters an autonomous search mode to scan the designated sector for a replacement who has the ability to overcome great fear. Homing recall protocol. A conscious lantern can mentally command a separated ring to return to the hand of the wielder. Emergency life support protocols. If the wielder is incapacitated in a hostile environment like deep space, the ring automatically generates a force field and recycles oxygen to keep them alive. Lethal force authorization. The historical status of this was the restriction was always on. The rings originally would not allow a lantern to use lethal force. The current status, however, is restriction off. During the Sinestro Corps War, the Guardians rewrote the Book of Oa to authorize lethal force against the Sinestro Corps. Later, during Blackest Night, this was expanded to authorize lethal force against all enemies of the Green Lantern Corps. Now, the ring is only a tool. Its effectiveness depends entirely on the mind wielding it. Let's take a look at Earth's most famous ring slingers because they all use this weapon very differently. First, the original, Alan Scott. Now, it's important to note that Alan's ring is completely different from the rest of the Corps. It wasn't made by the Guardians on Oa. Alan's ring was forged from the Star Heart, a magical entity created when the Guardians gathered all the chaotic magic in the universe and compressed it into a meteor. Because of this, Alan's powers are magical, not scientific. His constructs often appear as green flames rather than solid light. And his weakness wasn't the color yellow. Strangely enough, it was wood. Yes, the most powerful weapon on Earth at that time could be defeated by somebody with a baseball bat or a tree branch. Next is the first human inductee into the Corps, Hal Jordan. Hal is a test pilot. And in the comics, he is often cited as having the strongest willpower in the entire Corps. But how does he use the ring? He isn't creative in an artistic sense, he is precise. Because of his engineering and pilot background, his constructs are mechanical. He makes a jet, he doesn't just make a shape of a jet that looks like, a plane. He creates the working engine parts, the thrusters, and the aerodynamics. However, Hal is also known for something called gas leakage. He pours so much raw will into the ring that it often struggles to contain it, causing excess energy to drift off from his constructs like steam. Then we have Guy Gardner. Guy is complicated. He has immense willpower, but his emotional control is terrible. In the comics, Guy's ring is famously always sparking. It sizzles and it cracks. This represents his inability to keep a lid on his own power. He uses the ring like a fire hose or a blunt instrument. He doesn't make a perfect replica of a rifle, he just blasts a wall of energy. It's messy, it's loud, but it works. Next is John Stewart. John is a former U.S. Marine and an architect. His combination makes him arguably the most efficient lantern. When John Stewart makes a card, he builds the engine block, the chassis, the axles, the tires. He builds it from the inside out because he understands load bearing physics. His constructs are structurally the strongest. They don't just look like things, they function like them. Finally, Kyle Rayner. Kyle was a freelance graphic artist chosen by a desperate Ganthet in an alleyway when the corpse was already destroyed. Kyle's constructs are the most creative. While Hal creates a boxing glove, Kyle creates a giant mech or a mythical dragon. His constructs are constantly evolving and changing mid battle because his artist's mind rarely sits still. Also, historically, Kyle's first ring was a unique final version that did not have the weakness to yellow, making him a powerhouse in the 90s. The Green Lantern ring is the ultimate example of mind over matter. Whether you're an architect, an artist, a pilot, or a brawler, the ring adapts to you. It's a weapon that proves that the strongest force in the universe isn't a bomb or a laser, it's sheer will. But I want to know, if you had a ring, what would your construct style be like? Would you be technical like John or bring the chaos like Guy Gardner? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time.